Welcome to the PropTech Podcast. It's Kylie Davis here, and I'm delighted to be your host as we explore the brave new world where technology and real estate collide. I passionately believe we need to create and grow a sense of community between the innovators and real estate agents, and sharing our stories is a great way to do that. Now, the aim of each episode is to introduce our listeners to a PropTech innovator who is pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and to explore the issues and challenges raised by the tech and how they can create amazing property experiences. And now, if you've been feeling a bit gloomy with the ongoing lockdowns and COVID, this episode will give you the cheer up you need. My guest is Matt Waugh from Conexie, which specialises in connecting both human and appliance data in our buildings to help make them genuinely smart. And best of all, it works for residential houses as well as commercial buildings. And this is extremely exciting technology that combines the best of the Internet of Things with observations by people. And if it's widely adopted, it could have a huge impact on helping us reduce the environmental impact of our buildings, as well as improve their safety and increase their healthiness. Now, Matt is an AFR Top 100 Future Leader of Australia, and he's here to tell us all about it. Matthew Waugh, welcome to the PropTech Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on the show. Now, Matt, we always start off, I'm really looking forward to diving into Conexie because we have had a little bit of a pre-conversation about what it's about, and it's made me very excited. But before we kick off, tell us what the Conexie elevator pitch is.
Okay. Try and make it as succinct as possible. Conexie is a native iOS and Android app that is designed for end users to access information, to submit their needs, but also to surface data of the devices and things that are in the world around us today, whether it's in your home or your community or your precinct. So Conexie is all about being a portal for communication to make living in the new normal as seamless as possible.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to translate that into human speak for for my listeners who are not necessarily complete geeks. So what Conexie does is it captures all of the data that's going on inside a building through its smart devices, and it connects that with the human observations or input from living in that building, whether it's a house or an apartment unit, and it brings all of that information together and then shares it so that you can do more with it, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah.
If I've got it right, I'll edit it out. If I've got it wrong, I'll edit it out.
No, that was perfect. That's exactly what we do I guess from our side, it's hard because we live in the product, but in regards to explaining it for the industry you work in, that's perfect.
Yeah. So how did Conexie start? So like you started off in one thing and you pivoted pretty quick. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so Conexie was initially made with the idea that there was, multi-tenanted living and strata and all those things were starting to become the norm across, the world, really. Mm-hmm. And there seemed to be a disconnect between lots of people trying to funnel information through to one or a few people, whether that's body corporates or strata managers and building managers. So we wanted to take advantage of smartphones being in everyone's pocket and create a really user-friendly access portal to capture information or capture pivotal information and then distribute that information to the right people. Because I think noticing the problem and knowing who to tell are two very different things, but they need to come together for something to happen. Yep. So that was Conexie in its early days. It was called Fix It. We set about revolutionizing maintenance and
right. Yep.
And it was great. So that was probably 5 years ago now. And as I'm sure everyone's aware, there's a lot of players in this space now because I think that was a noticed gap in the market. Yep. And obviously some people in that space are doing an exceptional job. And I'm sure a lot of building managers, strata managers and property managers are very grateful for the existence of these platforms. But what we found throughout this process was there was also the incorporation now of devices and smart buildings and smart cities, and sort of infratech was taking off. And so the ability to capture the needs of people was sort of just as important as the ability to capture the data that all these smart devices were creating. And so what we set about doing, and sort of, I guess, pivoting in the way we presented the solution, but the solution was still very much the same. It was get the right information to the right people at the right time for the right outcome. And that's always sort of been the methodology behind Conexie and Fix It. But yeah, so what we thought about doing was creating, I guess, API portals so that all that data, which is so valuable if you know what the data is actually saying, and made it really user friendly to surface that on people's apps and with context of, you know, whether it was their commercial property or their residence or whatever else, but being able to see that data and then take action on it. That's sort of, yeah, that's what we do now. And that's seems to be sitting well in the market, and we're growing at a really, at a rate that we're really excited about.
So the problem, so you're solving a couple of problems the way I see it. The first problem that there's quite a few players in the market around is that when you experience a maintenance issue in a especially a multi-tenanted building, you're not really sure as a tenant if it's something you need to tell your landlord or the property manager or the building facilities manager or the strata manager. And by the time you've worked through all of those four people and sent emails to them and sent another email to them and then called them all because no one ever got back to you, you know, that can take months and sometimes even years for stuff to get fixed. So there's that human side of it, of whose job is it to fix this thing that I've just seen. But then on top of it, increasingly, there's so many devices in buildings or even in our pocket as we walk into buildings that are all chattering away and collecting data. You're kind of pulling those two really important streams together to, what kind of information do you get out of that by seeing the two things together or all the things together?
One of the really cool use cases that we're sort of expanding on at the moment is we started surfacing energy data. So consumption and production of energy. And with the growth and the, I guess, the evolution in batteries and things like that, with solar energy specifically, there's a lot of information behind the user profile. And if I'm, you know, a residential building, multi-tenant building, how much energy I'm consuming is one part of the story, but actually what's that energy being consumed on is the other part. And that's where there's that marrying of the human context and the data context. And so what we've actually managed to surface was in one of our clients at 2 a.m., they were consuming a considerable amount of energy. But for that had been, no, the client actually was a commercial site. It was a car wash.
Okay.
So not too much Netflix was going on there, but what happened was they had been getting, you know, the quarterly bills, and the bills looked a certain way, and really without diving, you know, spending hours and hours looking and auditing and things like that, there was no way that they would know between 2 and 4 a.m. there was some hardware within one of their sites that was acting in a faulty manner and actually costing them, and for the sake of round numbers, I'll say $100 a night. And there was no way to identify that, let alone trigger something for the staff or the stakeholders to act on it until something could surface this data in real time and provide it with context. And so we came in, we were installed on those sites. They've got 15 sites, and the problem was being repeated across all of them because it was the same hardware that was.
Ow.
Yeah. And now you can see how this starts to sort of roll out into quite a big cost. And so that's sort of one thing we're really proud of, that our software immediately provided a return on investment for those commercial clients. But now we're looking at, feeding that back into that, I guess, residential and property sector. Knowing this information is only going to create more, you know, power and opportunity for like large scale landlords if they've got a number of properties in their portfolio, being able to optimize the energy consumption for their tenants, potentially knowing what kind of solar that would best suit them, and then down the line, potentially adding additional revenue streams through what they capture in that solar and pushing it back into the network. So it's all just about taking all the abundance of information we have around us and putting it into really easy to understand, user-friendly dashboards on a phone, and then making it actionable for people.
So the dashboard sits on your phone, not on so like everyone can see it, tenants and owners, or?
It's a two-part solution. So there's a back end that you can log into, and that's sort of what the admin or the management would utilize. And then the native iPhone and iOS app provides a dashboard which is relevant to your position in the stakeholder hierarchy. So if you're a tenant, you can see consumption so that you can maybe, you know, improve the way you're using energy at nighttime. If you're the landlord, you can see consumption and production, so you can see, you know, how your solar is being generated. And then if you're the property manager, you can see that across the portfolio and actually make really highly intelligent recommendations to your owners.
Right. Okay, cool. So what kind of devices are in our buildings that are feeding this information?
It's quite scary if you start looking at it at a granular level. These
I love
devices
that.
are every
Yeah,
uh,
because here's the thing, isn't it? Is that in our buildings, because we've built buildings and people have lived in them for millennia, we kind of assume that we know how they work, but we really don't. We assume that, well, they cost this much to build, and then we put this many tenants in, and they bring us back this much, and the quarterly expenses are blah. And then, and occasionally, annoyingly, people report problems with them, and we have to have a capex or a budget to just fix them. But that's it. There's nothing else complicated about it. But what you guys are doing is actually letting people see that when the data starts to feed in, you can actually really start to see what's being used and costing where, so that we can actually start to make our buildings more efficient and friendly and healthy and, better for the whole planet kind of thing.
Yeah, and
I'm having a fangirl moment. This is awesome.
I think it was really great that you used the word healthy there, because that's sort of how we like to look at it. I think when you as a building manager are relying on, doing site visits and walking around and sort of basic maintenance scheduling, it's kind of like putting your fingers on someone's pulse and saying, I can feel it, they're healthy. Whereas what we provide is an MRI, an X-ray, a CT scan, and some blood work to go with it. Because being proactive is so much more cost-effective than being reactive. But the way that we deal with infrastructure at the moment is inherently reactive. We wait until we see the crack and then start trying to fix it. Whereas there's devices that out there that could sense vibrations, and if vibrations are creating a trend of data that increases, then you would be likely to start noticing that maybe there's a crack or a design fault or something like that could lead to more information that you could dive into and sort of more insights and more beneficial outcomes for everyone. And the best thing about all this is that these devices do this every day, all the time. It's not like you're having to go out there and check these sites,
Yeah. So the sorts of things that are providing information are things like what? Air conditioning, elevators, security systems.
Elevators. I mean, one of the really cool things is the secure buildings. So like in Strata, you've got a panel to log in or to get into the building. That's creating data. That's creating potential business intelligence of foot traffic, of delivery times, of how many people come into a building before you start to notice faults in the lifts and things like that. All of these things create such valuable data, but it's not viable to expect someone to sit there and look at them all independently and create outcomes. Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of where we sort of sit in Clean Air, and what we're hoping to achieve Blue Sky is by being a light user-based interface. We design everything to be friendly for the end user rather than to be all about the specific job it's trying to do. So some of these devices are extremely like a water usage device that'll tell you to the milliliter how much water is going through that pipe. That siloed technology is so powerful in what it's achieving, but until you can access that and put that information into context of other information, it can only really be solved for one thing. Once you put that into sort of an open data portal or where it can be pulled, as I said, with context of other things, all of a sudden that one monitoring device becomes a pivotal tool in the health of your building. And that's sort of what we aim to achieve with Conexie is reduce those barriers to smart, connected, unsiloed, buildings and communities.
Yeah, awesome. And now let's hear a word from our sponsors. For almost 16 years, Direct Connect has made moving easy for over 1.2 million renters and homeowners by arranging connections to a wide range of services, from electricity and gas to internet and pay TV. With a national team of local account managers who are experts in the industry, Direct Connect are there to support your real estate business with competitive rewards for every successful connection, plus an industry-leading rewards program. The connection process is simple, and Direct Connect's always-on guarantee ensures your customers will be connected on the day they move in. Direct Connect offers a range of market-leading suppliers, and Direct Connect has now made it even easier than ever to send connections, directly integrating with MRI Software's Property Tree. So in just a few clicks while processing a tenancy, you can send the connection details through and get your customers connected. To make the right connection and find out how Direct Connect can make moving easy for you and easy for your customers, visit agents.directconnect.com.au or call 1300 558 169. So is it only for commercial and big buildings, or can I use it for my house?
No, and we at the moment we're onboarding sort of between 5 and 10 houses nationally a week. Specifically I guess because energy is something common to all of us, and because of the rising costs and things like that, there's a bit of incentive in it. So right now that's how we are helping the residential market. And what it is there's an auditor tool is installed into your power box. And then that tool talks to Conexie, and from anywhere you can see, the usage going on in your house. You could, if you wanted to we have sort of different tiered subscriptions where you can build in the ability to switch things on and off. So you can, there is these, capabilities and softwares out there for smart houses, turn the TV off, things like that. But a lot of, I guess, legacy hardware doesn't have that capability. So we're trying to give a technology overhaul on things that don't have that capability.
So what would that look like in a typical house?
Yeah, so in typical house, that hardware device or the monitoring device, the auditor would be installed, and then you would instantly get notified on your phone, and it says you're now live with Conexie for your house. So you would open the app and you would be able to see, depending on if you have a pool pump or you have some things that have their own energy line that you could connect to. That would then identify it as that item is using this much energy at this time, and then we can actually translate that in the app to this many dollars. So you could come home, and if you've got kids and they've left the lights on, you could say you cost $2.40 today. That's coming out of your weekly pocket money. But what it really does, and that sounds comical, but what it does is it gets buy-in and engagement. Like you really get almost gamifying the sustainable green living, because you're seeing your efforts produce outcomes in real time. So the ROI isn't just in money saved; it's actually in I guess a change of behavior as well.
Cool. And so from there, I guess you'd be able to assess properly the value of solar on your roof or things like that.
We've partnered with some of, I guess, Australia's leading solar financiers who sort of come in, provide an audit of the house and say, okay, with this much roof space, you'd be able to get this much solar. That means over this period of time, we could do that for a $0 upfront loan. So their idea is to reduce that barrier of the upfront cost. And then we've also partnered with sort of premier installer teams, because what they want to then be able to do is go to their either existing clients or new clients and say, hey, we can chuck one of these things in for a month. You can see it on your phone. We can see how you're consuming things. We can make suggestions on how you can improve the way you're doing, like your energy consumption behavior. But also we can suggest, this installation is going to save you X amount of money over X time. So it's all about giving more information to people to make good decisions for a sustainable green future, I guess, in that energy regard.
Fantastic. That's really exciting. So tell me about a little bit about you, Matt. Like, how did you get into this? What's your background?
My background was I was a business manager for an industrial chemical company in Asia.
Ooh.
And yeah, a bit different. And I was based over there, and my job in that role was to be a part of a software implementation team where we did all the business mapping and workflow optimization work to then design an interface called an ERP system. More or less what that means is a system that helps all the other little systems going on work together and create a more efficient workplace, which ironically is quite similar to what we've tried to achieve with Conexie. And that's sort of, I guess, where my expertise in that field came from. And then our other founders, Seb and Jake, Seb's background is purely innovation. He invented a device which is used for saving lives all around the world now in regards to firefighting. And then so he created that idea. He made it into a market ready product. He then sold it around the world, and since joining this venture has exited that business. So his mind is all about looking at a wheel and seeing how to make it better. And awesome. Bringing those two people together, and then throwing the third one in, which is Jake, who has worked for the last 10 years in the sales of software and optimization software and innovation software. So he now comes in and brings that third element to our business, which sort of I feel puts us in good stead for the years ahead.
No, fantastic.
But yeah, so it's kind of cool. We've got the yin and yang of my background being, I guess, like a bean counter in business, and Seb's background being like, how can we take this thing apart and rebuild it, and then and then throw Jake in, and he can go find people that want to buy it and will benefit from it. That's sort of our business to a T.
Awesome. So what's your business model? Are you subscription or what? How does that work?
Yeah, so we're subscription based. We started out trying to build as a SaaS, specifically just a SaaS. We're now, I guess, more of a bespoke SaaS because we have that capability. We've tried to coin the term comms plus. So Conexie has, as I was talking about, the surfacing of data and all these other capabilities, but we also come with that initial offering of connecting people to all of this information. And so you could, for residential people, where we sell it as a subscription for monitoring of the data and the account setup, and that comes with the hardware installation as well. Or if you're a commercial outfit, then we talk about sort of, I guess, the larger offering that we can provide to if you've got lots of staff and transient communities. We're sort of talking at the moment with a precinct management team with a new project up in Brisbane, and what they're trying to do is create a seamlessly engaged transient, I guess, precinct environment where people come in to go to restaurants or go and look at a car yard or go to do yoga. And because our software can identify you based on a geolocation, so you're inside the fence of this precinct, then you're now accessible to information being sent to you, or for you to send the information to the people relevant to where you're standing. So it's kind of, there's tiers to the offering, but it's a subscription-based model primarily.
Cool. So I'm going to come back to another question on that. But so for a typical house, what's the subscription rate?
So we do everything in 5-year monitoring off the bat. We definitely can do things on a bespoke thing different to that. But if you're a residential owner standalone, you're looking at about $1,500 for the 5 years.
Right. Oh, okay. That's pretty reasonable. So it's a cup of coffee a day. So not even. So I want to go back to that idea that I'm inside the precinct and now you're starting to push me. What are there a couple of things, I guess, with COVID, being able to track people or see who's come into the precinct seamlessly, it's made us all really mindful of that. Have you had any insights around with COVID happening?
Well, not specifically, I guess, because we've been so heavily focused in what we've been doing at the moment. But we definitely have identified a gap that we could move into, because we are connecting people on that. I guess, what's the word for it? Like a mobile platform that isn't specific to you. Have it every day of your life, and it's like a day-to-day usage tool. But if you enter a precinct, then it recognizes you've been there and you've left there, and it captures that. And then if you need to be contacted at a later date, there's that capability there. It would just be about rejigging, I guess, the offering to match those needs.
And so what's the privacy? How do we manage the privacy around this? Like, do I feel a little bit violated that suddenly I'm getting text messages and or I'm getting notifications about something that I didn't know just because I've crossed an invisible barrier?
No, absolutely not. So everything with our platform, as I mentioned, is designed with the end user in focus. So everything is opt-in. So what we try and set up is something that is of benefit to you to want to be engaged on it. So you walk into that precinct, and then obviously there'll be advertising or marketing collateral that says, hey, if you want to be engaged with all the different stakeholders within this precinct and be a part of this community, scan this QR code, and then that'll localize your phone to be then able to communicate with that precinct community. But if you don't opt in on that, then there's no contacting you with unwarranted SMSs and things like that.
No, okay. But even if I say I don't want to be contacted, you still know that I was there and you know where I went, which is still feeding into the bigger anonymized data set, I guess, at the top.
No, we'd only identify that you were there if you had the Conexie app on your phone. So you still have to choose to be for your phone to be able to be talked to by whatever the admin backend system is. So if you walk into the precinct, if you haven't got Conexie on your phone, there's no engagement with you.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's the app is what localizes your phone, and then we call them channels, but each individual precinct or account has, you have your own opt-in capabilities with those independent accounts.
Right. Okay. So it's more for people who are going to be going there all the time or regularly, as opposed to just someone who pops in because they're in town for the day.
Yeah, exactly. And then so we sort of leave that then with the precinct providers. So one of our use cases, we did a pilot with a university here in Sydney, and to incentivize the opt-in, there was you could opt in and then gain access to coffee deals and things like that, because that obviously creates a two-way communication touch point.
Yep.
And then in exchange for that coffee benefit, you're then actually giving business intelligence to that university for foot traffic and everything else that they can use to optimize the experience for all students in the area. So it's very much a opt-in only, nothing violating, nothing, no Big Brother sort of things going on here.
Okay, awesome. So we've talked about the benefits in terms of energy usage and I guess repairs and maintenance. What are there other benefits to Conexie?
Yeah, so I guess leading back to that Comms Plus concept of our software, by acknowledging the needs of people with a automated process. So if it is the submission of, I need to find out where the bins are located in this multi-tenanted building, or I'm doing an induction or whatever it else, by acknowledging that through an automated software, you're getting that buy-in and that engagement. And so you're actually creating intrinsic investment in the communities that you have within your buildings. And then there's metrics on that to, decrease vandalism, increased satisfaction, increased happiness and things like that. So on a non-financial metric, we create that sort of ecosystem and that capability. But then on a financial metric, it's that workflow optimization. You're not having to have 3 phone calls and asking for 2 different emails. You're getting one actionable email with photos, with context, with relevance. And all you're having to do is say, yes, I accept this is a problem, and integrate it to your current maintenance system. So it's all about, really, we try and make sure that with Conexie, you don't have to touch something twice. Awesome. If that, yeah. So that's a big part of it. And then the other element is we build in a triage capability to our platform. So if I'm going to submit something, if it's a query or if it's a troubleshooting capability based submission, you can actually, as the manager, build those troubleshooting options into the app. So before I can even submit what it is I'm trying to submit to you as the building manager, I have to have tried X, Y, Z. And then when that submission comes through, it comes through with the context of, I tried these things. So you're not having to, double handle that again.
I turned it on and off. I've checked the powers on.
And it seems funny, but in so many cases, like we did some work with a petrochemical company here in Australia, which has 800 sites, for abundance of 500,000 people going through their stores, every month. And their staff, one of the things for that was the signs for the cost of the fuel. They were getting call-out fees because their current maintenance system, once you submit that, then goes to the sign technicians, and then they come out there and then they turn the box off and turn the box back on, and the sign works. and it's something as simple as that more often than you'd like to believe. So just creating that accountability and also creating that process for people to be a part of, just something as simple as that reaps massive rewards for our clients.
It makes you realize, doesn't it, how much work we give ourselves when really just a couple of extra questions can help solve a lot of stuff. So Matt, tell us a little, who are some of your clients? You've sort of alluded to a few of them, but give us, I mean, not names necessarily, but you're obviously doing stuff with residential clients individually.
Yeah, who else? We're working with a national ASX listed company at the moment to optimize their energy consumption, but also create engagement within their staff. They're I don't know how to say it loosely, but they're a retailer of homewares. And what they started with was just Conexie to audit their consumption and be able to provide business managers or store managers with which stores are working effectively and which stores aren't. And that's now been farmed out to a full-scale operation where we actually can trigger at 6 p.m. at night, store managers with the context of, hey, your store is utilizing this much energy when it's triggered to say it shouldn't be using more than.
Turn the lights off. Turn the lights off in the storeroom.
we make a very friendly notification at 6 p.m. Maybe go back to the office and turn them off. And things as simple as that have created almost a work culture of competition between stores, who can be the most efficient, who can be, the most engaged, all that sort of stuff. So we're really, I guess, now finding our feet in what all of these capabilities can provide for that sort of scale client. Outside of that, as I mentioned, we've partnered with a solar financer who they're sort of out and national now, installing panels on people's roofs every day. We're now a pivotal part of that onboarding process and the reduction in barriers for getting those residents and owners to buy in. And then obviously blue sky for us is if we're providing that data to enough people, we can then turn around and look at ways to create additional revenue streams for those investors or landlords. Cool.
I'd love to get the details of your solar provider. We'll put that in the show notes too. As well as your details. As a real estate agent, you need to be doing more content marketing. But creating posts for social media, creating videos and reports is hard work, lots of hard work, and it takes time. So that's why you need HomePrezo. If you're a typical agent posting 1 or 2 social media posts a week, HomePrezo can save you between 75 to 100 hours a year. How many more properties could you sell if you had that time back? HomePrezo can help you create engaging, informative videos about how the property market in your local suburb is performing. Plus, it makes creating suburb reports, rental videos for landlords, and social media infographics an absolute piece of cake. If you can type in a suburb or type an address, you can create a Prezo using HomePrezo in just a few minutes. Listeners to the PropTech podcast receive a 14-day free trial. Now that's twice as long as the normal free trial. So go to homeprezo.com.au and click the sign up button and use the code PropTech to get your extended free trial. Or click the link in our show notes. So is much competition in this space, Matt? Like who else is out there or are you guys the only ones?
I think we'd be very naive to think that we're the only people doing something like this. I think what potentially makes us a little bit unique is that we are very comfortable in saying we specialize in the communications part. We take the information and give it to someone to do something, and we have no intention on ever being anything outside this part of the scope. There is incredibly powerful and successful softwares that do maintenance and accounting and payroll and all these other elements that you sort of start to see the scope creep coming towards.
Yep.
But we are very absolute in where we sit, which is we are going to be the industry leaders in capturing information, whether that's device or person, and handing that information to the right person at the right time. And that is where we will stop.
Fantastic. So you're doing a lot of work in obviously big data and automation. What do you see the future holds in property tech, in prop tech in this space over the next 5 years?
I think that, and it's starting to sort of become more evident now, there's an increased appetite for de-siloing these data streams and actually sharing them between what would have traditionally been seen as competitors to create additional opportunities. And I think probably realestate.com.au started this, where, prior to that, everyone wanted to market through their own channels and they wanted their channel to be the number one channel. But actually what it created was too many channels that people didn't know what to look at or where to find it. Whereas if you create one single place which can bring in this really, succinct and powerful information from all of these other real estate agents, the buyers know where to go and they can actually make their choice with a lot more confidence and ease. And so I think you've probably found with the increased exposure to the different information portals, you've actually increased the appetite for consumption as a whole. You haven't, I kind of like to think of it, I did a chat at an open data session for councils, and what I tried to say to them is I think a lot of people look at data and power and things like that as like an absolute pie, and if they give part of that pie to someone else, they have less.
Yeah.
When really what it is an infinite opportunity, and if you share your information with someone else's information, you create more opportunities.
Yep.
And I think that's where people are starting to realize this is all going. It's not about protecting what you know. It's about specializing in one part of it and adding value to every other part that you may be 1 or 2 degrees away of separation from.
So as we head into the future, it's products like yours that are going to be enabling making our cities truly smart, I guess, making our buildings really smarter.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. How long do you reckon, what's your prediction on how long will it take to get Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane? How long do you reckon we've got before we really are all, our cities really are connected properly and we're living in smart cities?
There's some incredible flagships that make it seem like this could be sooner than later. I mean, Newcastle is an incredible example of a city and as a council that all got buy-in and wanted to create sort of that flagship opportunity of smart cities. So I definitely don't think it's in the the unfathomable future. I think though there is an element, and maybe in the cities like Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne, we forget we're in maybe a bubble of population as well, where what works for us probably doesn't work for the other 80% outside that bubble. So I think it's all about maybe going at a pace which keeps it's not the people at the back of the line, but keeps sort of the greater population invested as we step forward, rather than leaping ahead with one part and then expecting the rest to sort of play catch up. So I think we'll definitely see more and more of these bubble flagship sort of pioneering communities and cities, and then eventually I think those will creep up to being closer and closer to each other, and eventually they'll be neighbouring. So maybe,
and then they'll start to connect to each other, and it'll get really clever then.
Yeah, exactly. So I would hope. COVID obviously has changed a lot of that priority in terms of people are now maybe having a look at where their budgets are and stuff like that for a more sustainable, get through the next year or two before we start looking a bit further ahead like that. But it has also created a really great opportunity for a reset button for so many businesses to go the way we were doing it as is or as was. We now have the opportunity to completely look at that, reflect on it, and innovate. And so,
and probably too the ability to think, you know what, let's install. Where are we going to find our next cost savings to get us through COVID? Knowing that simply turning the lights off at 6 o'clock in the storeroom could actually have a big impact and maybe save people's jobs down the line because you're using what you've got.
And that was something that we were really sort of, I guess, proud to be a part of. And we didn't realise that a big part of maybe the barriers to us entering the market pre-COVID was there wasn't really that much appetite for the saving of $100 here and $50 there. That's a very different story now in 2020.
Oh yeah, we want it now.
Yeah. And for us, 2020 has been by far our biggest year. We our annual recurring revenue has nearly doubled month on month since March. And as I mentioned, we're in 5-year contracts. So there's definitely been a shift in the needs and the wants of our clients. And also to be able to sit there in our sort of, when we have our team meetings and say, well, we potentially, we've optimized over $500,000 worth of energy for this company. How many jobs did we just save? Or how many, what has that created in terms of opportunity rather than just more money in the bank? So in a very horrible time, there is some silver linings and things that I hope will create for a really sustainable future for Australian business.
Fantastic. And so what does 5-year contracts means that you guys are positioned pretty well. What does the future hold for Conexie?
I think, as I said, we sort of want to become the go-to tool for connecting all these other siloed technologies to become that conduit for smart cities and smart living and smart communities. We're looking at now what opportunities our energy information it can create and what we can do for our customers. One of those things, I think it's sort of a buzzword at the moment in the energy space, is the virtual power plants. We have the ability now to take the production data from solar and the consumption data from solar, and then by creating purchasing agreements, we are looking at how we can offer our landlords or our property managers to their portfolios a no-cost upfront installation through the financer, and then an additional revenue stream as the landlords can actually sell their energy back to their tenants at a much cheaper rate than what the tenants would be paying for off the grid. So you're adding value to your asset, you're adding value to your tenants, you're creating an additional revenue stream. And this is all with the existing software and technology that we have. And it's now just about sort of creating that reach and
joining the dots.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of where we are at the moment, is just making sure what we deliver is everything we say it will be, and so that we have our happy customers. And then on the back of those happy customers, find out what it is we can do for them tomorrow and next month and next year.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, look, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been it's been wonderful to have such an optimistic and positive conversation about what the future holds. I mean, we always talk about amazing technology, but I really love these conversations around making it easy to save money and save the planet and all of that stuff. So thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome.
Not a problem at all. Thank you so much. I get excited talking about it.
No, that's fantastic. Now, we will include your contact details in the show notes. And what I'd also love to do is, if you are a prop tech out there or a business out there that has an app or a product that probably should be connecting into Conexie, we'll put some contact details in there for how they contact you for those sorts of inquiries as well, right?
Yeah, perfect. We sort of have the hello@Conexie email, but
yep.
Yeah.
It'll get to the right spot. All right. And I'm looking for put solar on our place, so I'll we'll do that with you too. Fantastic.
If for anyone, I don't know if anyone listening, the solar financer company that we work with is called Upstream. So if there is anyone that is interested and then they're looking at it, it's a 15-minute sort of call, and then they work it out from there whether it's a feasible thing based on roof size and all those other factors. But yeah, Upstream Energy, they've been an incredible partner of ours, and they're helping households around Australia go green every day.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, it's been wonderful to have you on the show, Matt. Thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem. Thank you so much.
So how are you feeling? Like the world actually does have a chance to be a better place, and like we could possibly, maybe, actually fix global warming? There is so much that I love about this technology. Most importantly, that it's bringing both the best of human and machine notifications and putting it all in one place so it can be used by building owners and managers. In PropTech at the moment, we're seeing a growing number of PropTech businesses that are helping tenants report building faults and make repair requests. And equally, but separately, there's another branch that is pulling in the automated data to help create smart buildings. But Conexie is the first that I've seen that is actually doing both of these things together. It's also the first that is actively available to residential houses. Everything else I've seen in the space has been focused on multi-dwelling or commercial buildings. And I really love how they're partnering with businesses that can help solve the problems that they're identifying through the data. And that really removes the pain points to action. So look, I've included a link to Upstream as well as Conexie in the show notes. Please check them out. And now, if you have enjoyed this episode of the PropTech Podcast, I would love you to tell your friends or drop me a line via email, kylie@realcontent.guru, LinkedIn or Facebook. And you can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor and Apple iTunes, and anywhere great podcasts are heard. I'd like to thank my audio support, Charlie Hollins, the fabulous Jill Escudero, and our sponsors, Smidge Wines, exclusive wines available only via the cellar door, Direct Connect, making moving easy, and Home Prezzo, now part of ActivePipe and making real estate marketing easier than ever before. Thanks everyone. Until next week, stay safe and keep on prop teching.